Sarah Martinez had been running Big Sky Animal Rescue for over 2 decades, and she thought she'd heard every possible emergency call. From cats stuck in storm drains during flash floods to horses trapped in barn fires, her phone had carried the desperate voices of people facing unimaginable situations with animals in peril. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared her for the raw terror in Jake Morrison's voice when her phone shattered the pre-dawn silence at exactly 6:47 a.m. on that bitter February morning. "Sarah, thank God you answered." Jake's words tumbled out in a frantic rush, punctuated by sharp intakes of breath that formed visible clouds in the frigid Montana air. "There's a dog out here, and she's dying. Sarah, I've never seen anything like this." Sarah bolted upright in bed, instantly alert, despite having worked until midnight the previous evening treating a litter of abandoned kittens. Her husband, Marcus, stirred beside her, but didn't wake. 23 years of marriage to an animal rescuer had taught him to sleep through emergency calls unless Sarah needed backup. "Slow down, Jake. Where are you? What's the situation?" Sarah's voice carried the calm authority that came from countless crisis situations, but her heart was already racing. Jake Morrison was not a man who panicked easily. The 62-year-old rancher had spent his entire life working with animals, delivering calves in blizzards, and handling everything from rattlesnake bites to mountain lion encounters. If Jake was this shaken, something was seriously wrong. "I'm about 15 miles northeast of you, near the old Chun property. You know, where Robert used to live before he—" Jake's voice cracked, and Sarah heard him take a shuddering breath. "There's a German Shepherd here, Sarah. Beautiful dog, but she's been lying in the exact same spot for 3 days now." 3 days. My neighbor Tom first spotted her on Tuesday morning when he was checking his fence line. We both figured she was just resting, maybe lost. But she hasn't moved. Not once. Sarah was already pulling on her thermal underwear, balancing the phone between her shoulder and ear. The temperature had dropped to a bone-chilling -15 degrees Fahrenheit overnight, and the Weather Service had issued warnings about life-threatening wind chills. No animal could survive long in these conditions without proper shelter. "Have you tried approaching her?" Sarah asked, struggling into her insulated pants while mentally cataloging the supplies she'd need. Hypothermia kit, emergency feeding, tubes, heated blankets, 4 fluids, glucose solution. The list ran through her head automatically. "That's the thing, Sarah. That's what's got me so spooked." Jake's voice dropped to almost a whisper, as if he were afraid the dog might overhear him. "When I got within about 20 feet of her yesterday evening, she lifted her head and looked right at me. Her eyes. God, Sarah, I've never seen eyes like that on an animal. She wasn't asking for help. She was warning me off, telling me to stay back. But she's starving. I can see her ribs from here. And she's shaking so hard from the cold that the snow around her is vibrating." Sarah paused in her frantic preparation, her experienced mind processing this information. A dog that was dying but still had the strength and instinct to guard territory? That was unusual. Most animals in extremis either fled or submitted when humans approached. Aggressive behavior typically indicated either fear, injury, or, "Jake, is she protecting something? Puppies maybe? Or food she's cached? I don't know, and I'm afraid to get close enough to find out." She's positioned herself right next to the old barn foundation, the one that partially collapsed last spring. There's some kind of depression in the ground where she's lying, but I can't see what's in it from my angle. Jake's breath was coming in short puffs now, and Sarah could hear his boots crunching through snow as he moved. "Sarah, I've been ranching for 40 years, and I've never seen an animal choose death over survival like this. Something's not right here." Sarah's mind raced through possibilities as she loaded her truck with emergency supplies. The old Chun property had been abandoned since Robert's sudden death 6 weeks ago. She remembered the gentle elderly man who used to bring stray cats to her rescue center, his kind eyes always tearing up when he talked about animals in need. His death from a heart attack had shocked the entire community. He'd seemed so healthy, tending his small farm right up until the end. "Jake, I need you to do something for me," Sarah said, starting her truck and letting it warm up while she gathered the rest of her gear. "Can you get a better view without getting too close? Use binoculars if you have them. I need to know what we're dealing with before I arrive. Already tried that. The angle's wrong from where I am, and if I move to get a better view, I'll have to cross into her line of sight." Based on her reaction yesterday, I don't think that's wise. Sarah threw her medical kit into the passenger seat and grabbed her thermos of coffee. She had a feeling this was going to be a long day. "Okay, I'm heading out now. It'll take me about 25 minutes to get there. Jake, I need you to promise me something. Don't try to help her until I arrive. I know it's hard to watch, but if she's protecting something, interference could make things worse." "I understand." Jake's voice was heavy with the weight of helpless watching. "Sarah, hurry. I've got a bad feeling that we're running out of time." As Sarah pulled out of her driveway, her headlights cutting through the pre-dawn darkness, she couldn't shake the feeling that Jake was right. Something extraordinary was waiting for her in that frozen wasteland, something that would challenge everything she thought she knew about the depths of animal devotion and the lengths to which a mother would go to protect her young. The speedometer needle climbed as she pressed harder on the accelerator, racing against time and temperature toward what would become the most incredible rescue of her career. The drive through the Montana wilderness felt like traveling through a frozen hell. Sarah's truck struggled against the bitter wind that swept across the open plains, carrying ice crystals that struck her windshield like tiny bullets. The temperature gauge on her dashboard read -18 degrees Fahrenheit, and she knew that with the wind chill, it felt closer to -40 degrees Fahrenheit. No living creature should be surviving in these conditions without shelter. Yet according to Jake, this mysterious German shepherd had been enduring this Arctic nightmare for 3 straight days. As Sarah turned onto the narrow dirt road leading to the old Chun property, her heart clenched with memories of Robert. The elderly farmer had been one of her most faithful supporters, bringing her injured barn cats and orphaned wildlife with the gentle care of someone who understood that every life mattered. His sudden death had left a hole in the community, and seeing his abandoned farmhouse always brought a wave of sadness. Jake's red pickup truck came into view first, parked at a careful distance from the collapsed barn. Sarah could see his silhouette in the driver's seat, and she knew he'd been maintaining his vigil throughout the night. As she pulled up beside him, Jake immediately jumped out, his weathered face etched with worry, and something else, something that looked remarkably like fear. "She's exactly where she was yesterday," Jake said without preamble, his breath foaming thick clouds in the frigid air. "Haven't seen her move so much as an inch. Sarah, I'm telling you, something's not natural about this." Sarah followed Jake's pointing finger toward the ruins of Robert's old barn. What she saw made her breath catch in her throat. About 50 yards away, near the crumbling stone foundation, lay the most beautiful German shepherd she'd ever seen. Even from this distance, Sarah could tell this had once been a magnificent animal. Her coat, though now matted and dulled by exposure, showed the rich gold and black coloring of premium bloodlines. But it was her position that struck Sarah as odd. The dog wasn't simply lying down to rest or conserve energy. She was arranged in a very specific way, her body curved protectively around what appeared to be a small depression in the earth. "I'm going to approach slowly," Sarah announced, gathering her emergency supplies. "Stay here unless I call for backup." "Sarah, I don't think that's... I've been doing this for 20 years. Jake, trust me." Sarah began her careful approach, every sense heightened and alert. She'd learned long ago to read animal body language like a survival manual, and what she was seeing now sent shivers down her spine that had nothing to do with the cold. The dog's head was up, alert, tracking Sarah's every movement with the focused intensity of a sentry. Her ears were pricked forward, not in greeting but in warning. This was not the posture of a dying animal seeking help. This was the stance of a guardian protecting something precious. At 30 yards, Sarah could see the full extent of the dog's condition, and it broke her heart. The animal was severely emaciated, her ribs clearly visible through her thinning coat. Ice crystals had formed in the longer fur around her neck and legs, evidence of her body's desperate attempts to generate warmth through shivering. Her nose was dry and cracked, her gums likely pale from dehydration and hypothermia. By every veterinary measure, this dog should have been unconscious or dead. Yet her eyes blazed with fierce, intelligent determination. "Hello, beautiful girl," Sarah called softly, crouching down to make herself less threatening. "I'm here to help you." The response was immediate and startling. The German Shepherd's lips pulled back slightly, not in aggression, but in clear warning. Her body pressed lower to the ground, and Sarah realized with sudden clarity that the dog was literally using herself as a shield, covering whatever lay beneath her with her own failing body. Sarah's experienced eyes caught a detail that made her heart skip. The dog's belly showed signs of recent pregnancy. The stretched skin, the enlarged mammary glands, this was a mother who had recently given birth. But where were the puppies? The answer came as Sarah crept closer, moving with the patience of someone who understood that one wrong move could spell disaster. At 20 yards, she heard it a sound so faint she almost missed it over the howling wind. A tiny squeak, barely audible, coming from directly beneath the German Shepherd. Sarah's blood ran cold as understanding crashed over her. The depression in the ground wasn't natural. It was a den, hastily dug by desperate paws. And the German Shepherd wasn't guarding territory or cached food. She was protecting her babies, using her own body as a living blanket against the killing cold. "Oh, sweet girl," Sarah whispered, tears freezing on her cheeks. "What have you been through?" At 15 yards, more details became heartbreakingly clear. The mother's paws were raw and bloody from digging in the frozen earth. Patches of fur had fallen out from malnutrition and stress. Her breathing was labored, each exhalation forming a small cloud that immediately froze and fell like snow. She had to be running on pure maternal instinct, now her body's reserves completely depleted, yet somehow still producing the milk that was keeping her puppies alive. The German Shepherd watched Sarah's approach with eyes that held a mixture of desperation and defiance. She was clearly torn between her need for help and her absolute refusal to abandon her post. Every muscle in her emaciated frame trembled, not just from cold, but from the monumental effort of staying conscious and alert. Sarah knelt in the snow 15 feet away, close enough now to see the slight movement beneath the dog's body, tiny forms shifting against their mother's warmth. The burrow had been cleverly positioned against the barn's foundation stones, which would provide some wind protection and retain a small amount of heat from the sun during the day. "You incredible, brave girl," Sarah murmured, her voice thick with emotion. "You've been keeping them alive all by yourself, haven't you?" As if understanding that her secret was discovered, the German Shepherd's rigid posture softened slightly. For the first time in their encounter, she looked directly into Sarah's eyes, not with warning, but with a plea that transcended species. "Help us," those golden brown eyes seemed to say. "Save my babies." Sarah reached for her radio with trembling fingers. This rescue was going to require everything she had. Sarah's hands shook as she keyed the radio, her voice barely steady enough to form words. "Jake, I need you to bring the emergency warming packs, all of them, and the portable heat lamp from the truck. Move slowly, we have newborn puppies under here." The silence on the radio stretched for several heartbeats before Jake's stunned voice crackled back. "Puppies?" In this weather? How is that even possible? I don't know, Sarah whispered, her eyes never leaving the German shepherd's face. But somehow, this incredible mother has kept them alive. As Jake gathered supplies, Sarah began the delicate process of earning the mother's trust. She had handled thousands of rescues, but never one where the stakes felt this impossibly high. One wrong move, one moment of panic from the protective mother, and the entire fragile family could be lost. "What's your name, beautiful?" Sarah murmured, slowly reaching into her medical bag. "You look like a ranger to me, strong, brave, protecting your territory." The dog's ears twitched at the sound of her voice, and for the first time, Sarah saw a flicker of hope beneath the fierce determination in those golden eyes. Sarah pulled out a high-energy nutrition paste, the kind used for animals in critical condition. She squeezed a small amount onto her gloved finger and extended it slowly toward Ranger. The mother's nostrils flared as she caught the scent, and Sarah could practically see the war raging within her desperate hunger, battling against the absolute refusal to move from her post. "It's okay, girl. You don't have to leave them. Just a little taste to give you strength." Ranger's tongue darted out tentatively, barely touching the paste before retreating. But that tiny taste seemed to awaken something in her starving body, and she leaned forward slightly, accepting another small portion. As she did, Sarah heard it again, that impossibly faint squeaking from beneath her. "Jake's coming with supplies," Sarah said softly, continuing to offer small amounts of nutrition while studying Ranger's positioning. "Can you let me see your babies, Ranger? I promise I won't hurt them." The mother's response was immediate and heartbreaking. She shifted her weight slightly, deliberately pressing herself lower against the den opening while maintaining eye contact with Sarah. The message was crystal clear. "I trust you, but I cannot move. They will die without my warmth." Sarah's mind raced through the logistics. The puppies had to be extremely young. Their cries were the high-pitched mewling of newborns, probably no more than a week or two old. At that age, they couldn't regulate their own body temperature and would die within minutes in these conditions without their mother's body heat. Jake appeared at Sarah's shoulder, moving with the careful silence of someone approaching a crime scene. He carried an armload of emergency equipment, his weathered face pale with shock as he took in the full situation. "My God," he breathed. "How long has she been like this?" Based on the puppy's size and development, I'd guess they were born right around the time the really cold weather hit, maybe 5 days ago. She's been their only source of warmth and food this entire time. Jake set down the supplies and shook his head in wonder. "In my 40 years of ranching, I've never seen anything like this. The determination, the sacrifice, it's beyond anything I thought animals were capable of." Sarah began setting up the portable heat lamp, angling it to warm the area around Ranger without creating a direct blast that might frighten her. The mother watched every movement with laser focus, but as the gentle heat began to reach her, she seemed to relax just slightly. "Now comes the tricky part," Sarah murmured to Jake. "I need to see how many puppies we're dealing with and assess their condition, but I can't ask her to move. The shock of cold air could kill them instantly." Sarah lay flat in the snow, positioning herself at an angle where she could peer into the small depression beneath Ranger's body. What she saw in the dim light from her flashlight stopped her heart completely. 5 tiny puppies, no bigger than hamsters, were nestled together in a perfectly formed nest that Ranger had somehow managed to line with her own shed fur. Their eyes were still closed, their tiny pink noses barely visible above bodies, so small they seemed impossible. They were piled together for warmth, their minuscule chests rising and falling in the rapid rhythm of newborn breathing. But it was their condition that left Sarah speechless. Despite the Arctic temperatures and their mother's malnutrition, the puppies were remarkably healthy. Their skin had good color, they were actively moving and vocalizing, and most incredibly, they were clearly well fed. Somehow, despite eating almost nothing herself for days. Ranger had continued to produce enough milk to keep all 5 babies thriving. 5 puppies, Sarah announced to Jake, her voice thick with emotion. All alive, all healthy. Jake, this is medically impossible. She should have lost her milk production days ago under these conditions. As if understanding that her secret was fully revealed, Ranger made a sound that was part whimper, part sigh. She looked directly at Sarah, with eyes that seemed to carry the weight of every desperate hour she'd spent protecting her babies. Every moment she'd chosen their survival over her own. Sarah reached out slowly, her bare hand making contact with Ranger's ice-cold fur for the first time. The mother didn't flinch or pull away. Instead, she pressed slightly into the touch, as if finally allowing herself to accept that help had arrived. "You did it, Ranger," Sarah whispered, tears flowing freely now. "You kept them all alive. You incredible, magnificent mother, you actually did the impossible." The wind howled around them, but for the first time in days, Ranger's vigil wasn't a solitary one. Help had finally come, and somehow, against all odds, she had succeeded in her most important mission, keeping her babies alive until rescue arrived. But now came the most dangerous part of all, moving 5 newborn puppies and their exhausted mother to safety without losing anyone in the process. The next 30 minutes would determine whether this miraculous family lived or died together. Sarah's mind shifted into crisis mode, every second of her 20 years of emergency animal rescue crystallizing into a single life-or-death plan. The margin for error was 0-1 mistake, 1 moment of panic, and they could lose everything. "Jake, I need you to start the truck and get the heater running full blast," Sarah commanded, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had navigated countless emergencies. "Open all the doors. We need to create a warm chamber we can move them into immediately." As Jake hurried to prepare the vehicle, Sarah knelt beside Ranger, studying the mother's condition with growing alarm. The German shepherd's breathing had become increasingly labored, each exhale forming smaller clouds in the frigid air. Her body temperature was dropping critically low, and Sarah could see the telltale signs of severe hypothermia, confusion in her eyes, muscle rigidity, and a dangerous lethargy that meant her body was beginning to shut down non-essential functions. "Stay with me, Ranger," Sarah whispered, gently stroking the mother's head. "I know you're tired, but I need you to hold on just a little longer. Your babies need you." At the mention of her puppies, Ranger's eyes sharpened with renewed focus. Even in her weakened state, the maternal instinct burned like an unquenchable flame. Sarah had seen this before in other species mothers who could summon superhuman strength when their offspring were threatened, but never to this extreme. Sarah began laying out her equipment with surgical precision: heated blankets, emergency formula, feeding syringes, oxygen mask, and most crucially, a specially designed transport incubator that could maintain precise temperature control. But looking at the tiny den beneath Ranger, she realized that standard rescue protocols weren't going to work. The space was too small for the incubator, and any attempt to extract the puppies individually would expose them to fatal temperature shock. "We need a different approach," Sarah muttered, her brain working frantically through alternatives. Then inspiration struck, a technique she'd seen used once for premature human babies in emergency situations. "Jake," she called out, "do you have any large towels in your truck? The biggest ones you can find? Got some moving blankets? Will those work?" "Perfect. Bring them here, and grab that thermos of coffee too." While Jake retrieved the supplies, Sarah began the most delicate part of the operation. She needed to gradually accustom the puppies to slightly cooler air before attempting to move them, but she had to do it without shocking their tiny systems. "Okay, Ranger, this is going to feel strange, but I need you to trust me," Sarah said, slowly positioning a heated blanket near the den opening. "I'm going to create a warm tunnel that leads to safety. Using the moving blankets and heated pads, Sarah constructed an insulated corridor from the den to Jake's truck. She poured the hot coffee into several small containers, placing them strategically along the pathway to create pockets of warm air. It was improvised and desperate, but it was their only chance. The most critical moment came when Sarah had to convince Ranger to move. The mother had been in the same position for so long that her muscles had likely stiffened, and any sudden movement could send her into shock. Worse, her maternal instincts were screaming at her to never leave her babies unprotected. "Look at me, Ranger," Sarah said, positioning herself where the mother could see both her and the warm pathway she'd created. "Your babies are going to be okay, but they need you to be strong enough to take care of them. And right now, you're dying." As if understanding every word, Ranger's gaze moved from Sarah to the makeshift rescue corridor, then back to the tiny forms beneath her. Her internal struggle was visible. Every instinct told her to stay, but logic whispered that staying meant death for all of them. Sarah made the decision for her. Moving with lightning speed, she scooped up the first puppy, a tiny female with distinctive black markings, and placed her in a pre-warmed container. The puppy's cry of distress was like a knife through Sarah's heart, but Ranger's reaction was even more devastating. The mother tried to lunge forward, her weakened legs betraying her as she collapsed back into the snow. "It's okay, she's safe," Sarah said quickly, showing Ranger that the puppy was secure and warm. "But we have to move fast, all of them, right now." One by one, Sarah transferred the puppies to heated containers, each removal causing Ranger visible agony, but also visible relief as she saw her babies safe and warm. The fourth puppy, the smallest one, let out a particularly weak cry that made Sarah's blood run cold. This one was in trouble. His breathing was too shallow, his tiny body too still. "Jake, we need to move now," Sarah shouted, gathering the containers while supporting Ranger's attempt to stand. The mother's legs shook violently, but somehow she found the strength to take a stumbling step toward her babies. The journey to the truck was a nightmare of coordination. Sarah carried 2 puppy containers while supporting Ranger's weight. Jake handled the other 3 containers, and both humans fought against wind gusts that threatened to knock them all down. Every step was agony for Ranger, who was using her last reserves of strength, and for Sarah, who watched the smallest puppy's breathing become increasingly irregular. As they reached the truck's warmth, disaster struck. The tiniest puppy, the one Sarah had mentally nicknamed Miracle, suddenly went limp in his container. His breathing stopped completely, his miniature body growing still. "He's not breathing," Sarah screamed, immediately beginning mouth-to-snout resuscitation on the puppy, no bigger than her thumb. "Jake, drive. Emergency Animal Hospital, and don't spare the horses." As the truck roared to life and began racing through the Montana wilderness, Sarah worked frantically over the tiny life in her hands while Ranger watched with eyes that held the accumulated terror of a mother who had already given everything and might still lose the battle. The race against time had begun, and they were losing. The Emergency Animal Hospital had never seen anything like the convoy that screamed into their parking lot at 9:23 a.m. Jake's truck skidded to a halt, sending snow flying in all directions, while Sarah burst through the passenger door, clutching a motionless puppy against her chest. Behind her, Ranger collapsed onto the truck's floor, her strength finally giving out after days of superhuman endurance. Emergency. Code Blue. Sarah screamed as she ran through the automatic doors, her voice echoing through the normally quiet waiting room. Hypothermic newborn. Respiratory arrest. Dr. James Patterson had been practicing veterinary medicine for 31 years, and he'd learned to read the gravity of situations in the first 3 seconds. The sight of Sarah Martinez, one of the most composed rescuers he knew, in complete panic mode, sent his entire staff into emergency protocol immediately. Trauma room 2 now, Dr. Patterson commanded, his silver hair flying as he rushed alongside Sarah. Nancy, get the infant warming unit heated to exactly 102 degrees. Maria, I need microforce supplies and pediatric oxygen masks. Move, people. The trauma room erupted into controlled chaos as the medical team descended on the tiny patient. Dr. Patterson took the puppy from Sarah's hands, his experienced fingers immediately checking for vital signs. What he found made his heart sink. No detectable pulse, no respiratory effort, body temperature dangerously low. How long has he been down? Dr. Patterson asked, beginning chest compressions with 2 fingers on the puppy's tiny rib cage. Maybe 3 minutes, possibly 4, Sarah gasped, tears streaming down her face. I tried mouth to snout in the truck, but nothing worked. Okay, he's young enough that we might have a window, Dr. Patterson muttered, working with the precision of a Swiss watchmaker. The puppy was so small that normal resuscitation equipment was useless. Everything had to be done by hand, by feel, by instinct. Meanwhile, veterinary technician Nancy Reeves was preparing the warming chamber when she noticed the commotion in the parking lot. Through the window, she could see Jake struggling to help a massive German shepherd out of his truck. The dog was barely conscious, her legs giving out with each step. Dr. Patterson, Nancy called out, we've got the mother coming in, and she's in critical condition too. Damn, the veterinarian swore under his breath. Okay, set up trauma room 1 for the mother. Get me 2 more staff members in here. We're about to fight for 6 lives simultaneously. As if summoned by his words, the hospital doors burst open again. Jake half-carried, half-dragged Ranger through the entrance, the mother's golden eyes frantically searching for her babies, even as her body shut down from exhaustion and hypothermia. She won't stop looking for them, Jake panted, his own face red from exertion and emotion. Even unconscious, she keeps trying to find her puppies. Dr. Patterson made a split-second decision that violated every standard protocol in his medical training. Bring her in here, he ordered. Set up her treatment station where she can see the babies. I've seen animal mothers give up and die when separated from their young in crisis situations. The next hour was a ballet of medical miracles, performed under impossible conditions. Dr. Patterson worked over the tiny puppy with equipment designed for animals 50 times larger, while his team fought to stabilize Ranger's critical hypothermia and dehydration. The other 4 puppies were placed in warming incubators, their vital signs monitored constantly as their body temperatures slowly rose. Come on, little fighter, Dr. Patterson whispered to the motionless puppy as he administered a microscopic dose of cardiac stimulant directly into the tiny heart. Your mama didn't keep you alive for 5 days in a blizzard just to lose you now. For agonizing minutes, nothing happened. The puppy remained limp and lifeless, his miniature body showing no response to the increasingly desperate medical interventions. Dr. Patterson tried manual ventilation, warming the tiny lungs with his own breath. He massaged the puppy's chest, trying to stimulate circulation. He even attempted a technique he'd learned for human babies, rubbing the soles of the tiny paws to trigger a reflexive gasp. Nothing. Across the room, Ranger was fighting her own battle for survival. Her core body temperature had dropped to 94 degrees, low enough to cause organ failure in most animals. Her blood pressure was barely detectable, and her breathing was so shallow that the monitors kept losing her respiratory signal. Yet somehow, even in her semi-conscious state, her eyes remained fixed on the warming incubators where her other babies were slowly recovering. She keeps trying to count them, observed Maria Santos, the lead veterinary technician, as she monitored Ranger's 4 fluids. Look at her eyes. She's going from incubator to incubator, making sure they're all there. Dr. Patterson glanced up from his work on the motionless puppy, following Maria's observation. Indeed, Ranger's gaze was moving systematically from one incubator to the next, and when she got to the 4th one and saw it empty, her vital signs spiked with distress. She knows, Dr. Patterson realized with a chill. She knows one of her babies is missing from the group. As if responding to her mother's distress, the tiny puppy in Dr. Patterson's hands suddenly convulsed. It was barely perceptible, just the faintest tremor, but it was movement. There! Sarah shouted from her position beside Ranger. Did you see that? Dr. Patterson's fingers detected the miracle he'd been praying for, a heartbeat. Weak, irregular, but definitely there. The puppy's chest began to rise and fall in tiny, rapid breaths that looked more like hiccups than respiration, but it was life. He's back, Dr. Patterson announced, his voice thick with emotion. Pulse is thready, but present. Respiratory effort is minimal, but improving. Across the room, something remarkable happened. The moment Dr. Patterson spoke those words, Ranger's vital signs stabilized. Her blood pressure improved, her breathing deepened, and for the first time since arriving at the hospital, she seemed to truly relax. It's like she was holding on just long enough to know he was safe, Maria whispered in amazement. But the battle was far from over. The tiny puppy, whom the staff had started calling Miracle, was alive but critically unstable. His body temperature was still dangerously low, his blood sugar was crashing, and his immature organs were struggling to function after the trauma of cardiac arrest. Dr. Patterson looked at the monitors, surrounding them 6 lives hanging in the balance, all dependent on the next few hours of intensive care. This wasn't just a medical emergency anymore. It was a test of everything he believed about the bonds between mothers and children, the will to survive, and the power of love to overcome impossible odds. While Dr. Patterson and his team fought to stabilize Ranger and her 5 puppies, Sarah found herself pacing the hospital's waiting room, her mind racing with questions that demanded answers. How had a clearly well-cared-for purebred German Shepherd ended up starving and alone in the Montana wilderness? Where was her owner? And most haunting of all, how long had this devoted mother been waiting for help that might never have come? Sarah pulled out her phone and began what she called detective work, the process of tracing an animal's history to understand how they'd ended up in crisis. She started with the most obvious approach, posting on the Big Sky Animal Rescue Facebook page with photos she'd taken of Ranger during the rescue. Urgent. Found this beautiful German Shepherd with newborn puppies near the Old Chun property. She appears to be a purebred with excellent bloodlines. If you recognize this dog or know anything about her history, please contact us immediately. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within minutes, her phone was buzzing with notifications as the post was shared across dozens of local Facebook groups. But it was the 7th comment that made Sarah's blood run cold. Oh my God, that's Luna. She belonged to Robert Chun. We've been wondering what happened to her since Robert died. His nephew said all the animals had been taken care of, but we never saw what happened to Luna. Sarah's hands trembled as she read the name Luna, not Ranger as she'd been calling her. She immediately called the commenter, a woman named Helen Martinez, no relation, who had been Robert Chun's neighbor for over 15 years. Robert loved that dog more than anything. Helen's voice cracked through the phone. When his wife died 3 years ago, Luna was literally the only thing that kept him going. He used to tell me she was his guardian angel, sent to watch over him in his old age. The pieces of the puzzle began falling into place with heartbreaking clarity. Sarah learned that Robert Chun, a 78-year-old Korean War veteran, had suffered a massive heart attack on December 15th while doing his evening chores. A postal worker had found his body 2 days later when mail began piling up. Robert's only living relative, a nephew from Seattle named David Chun, had flown in to handle the estate. David seemed like a nice enough young man, Helen continued, but he was overwhelmed. He had to fly back for work and hired some estate liquidation company to clear everything out. When I asked about Luna, he assured me she'd been taken to a good rescue organization. I just assumed, double quotes. Helen's voice trailed off as the horrible realization hit her. Nobody had taken Luna anywhere. The estate crew had simply locked up the house and left, probably never even knowing about the pregnant dog who had been hiding somewhere on the property, waiting for her beloved owner to return. Sarah's investigation took on desperate urgency as she realized the full timeline. Robert had died on December 15th. The estate was cleared by December 22nd. Luna must have given birth sometime around January 1st, during the worst cold snap Montana had experienced in years. For over 6 weeks, she had been a ghost on her own property, scavenging for survival while carrying and then nursing her babies. The next call Sarah made was to David Chun in Seattle. When she reached him at his tech company office, the young man's reaction was immediate and devastating. "What do you mean, Luna was still there?" David's voice rose in panic. "The estate company specifically told me they'd handled all the animals. They charged me an extra $500 for animal relocation services. Are you telling me they just left her?" Sarah's heart broke as she heard David's anguish through the phone. "David, I need you to understand Luna has been surviving on that property for 6 weeks. She gave birth to 5 puppies in a makeshift den and has been keeping them alive through pure determination. She nearly died protecting them." The silence on the other end of the line stretched so long that Sarah wondered if the call had dropped. When David finally spoke, his voice was thick with tears. "Uncle Robert used to send me pictures of Luna every week. He called her his Christmas miracle because he'd found her at a shelter on Christmas Eve 5 years ago, scheduled to be euthanized the next morning. He always said she saved his life by giving him something to live for after Aunt Margaret died." Sarah felt tears streaming down her own face as the cruel irony became clear. Robert Chun had saved Luna from death 5 years ago, and now Luna was fighting for her life because she'd remained loyal to him even after death. "The estate company is going to pay for this," David said, his voice now hard with anger. "But right now, what does Luna need? Money for medical bills? I don't care what it costs. Uncle Robert would never forgive me if I let anything happen to her." As Sarah shared details about Luna's condition and the puppy's needs, David made a decision that would change everything. "I'm flying out tonight. I should have been there for Uncle Robert's dog from the beginning. This is my fault, and I'm going to make it right." But the most shocking revelation came when Helen called Sarah back with additional information she'd remembered. "I just found some old photos Robert showed me last fall," Helen said. "Sarah, Luna wasn't just pregnant when Robert died. She was pregnant with what Robert believed were going to be very special puppies." Sarah's heart rate quickened. "What do you mean special?" Robert had been so excited because Luna had been bred with a champion German Shepherd from a prestigious bloodline in Colorado. He'd paid a fortune for the breeding rights and had already received deposits from people wanting to buy the puppies. He was planning to use the money to finally repair his roof and heating system. The final piece of the heartbreak fell into place. Luna hadn't just been surviving in the wilderness. She'd been protecting what Robert Chun had seen as his legacy, his final gift to the world. She had endured 6 weeks of hell, not just to save her babies, but to preserve the last living connection to the man who had saved her life. As Sarah hung up the phone, she realized that Luna's story was about more than survival. It was about love, loyalty, and the unbreakable bonds that exist between souls, whether human or canine. And now, finally, Luna was no longer alone in her vigil. What happened next defied every expectation Sarah had about how quickly a story could capture the world's attention. It started when Jake Morrison, still shaken from the morning's rescue, posted a single photo on his personal Facebook page. The image showed Luna in the hospital, her golden eyes fixed lovingly on the warming incubators containing her puppies, with the simple caption, This mama dog kept 5 babies alive in -15 degrees Fahrenheit weather for 6 weeks. Real love looks like this. Within 2 hours, that post had been shared 50,000 times. By evening, the photo had exploded across every social media platform imaginable. Twitter users were retweeting with hashtags like #LunaTheMiracle and #MotherLove. Instagram influencers were posting cheerful videos about Luna's story. TikTok creators were making tribute videos that garnered millions of views within hours. But it was the 9 p.m. post by actress Jennifer Lawrence that sent the story into the stratosphere. "I'm sobbing reading about Luna, the German shepherd who protected her puppies in a Montana blizzard," Lawrence wrote to her 15 million followers. "This is what pure, unconditional love looks like. If this story doesn't restore your faith in the power of maternal devotion, nothing will." #LunaStrong. Sarah's phone hadn't stopped ringing since 3 p.m. First, it was local news stations, then regional outlets, then CNN, Fox News, NBC, and every major network in between. By 8 p.m., camera crews from 4 different national news programs were setting up in the animal hospital's parking lot, transforming the quiet veterinary clinic into the epicenter of a media frenzy. "Sarah, Good Morning America wants to do a live segment tomorrow," announced Lisa Peterson, the hospital's overwhelmed receptionist. And Ellen's producers called 3 times. "Oh, and someone from the White House press office wants to talk to you about Luna meeting the First Lady." The donations began as a trickle at 2 p.m. and became a tsunami by evening. Big Sky Animal Rescue's donation website crashed twice under the volume of traffic. PayPal notifications were coming in so fast that Sarah's phone sounded like a slot machine hitting jackpot after jackpot. $25 from a teacher in Ohio, $500 from a retiree in Florida, $1,000 from a tech company in Silicon Valley that wanted to honor Luna's incredible strength. But the most touching donations came with personal stories attached. A woman in Texas sent $100 with a note. "Luna reminds me of my own mother, who worked 3 jobs to keep our family together. Some love is so strong it defies explanation." A military veteran in North Carolina donated $250, writing, "Luna's loyalty and sacrifice remind me of the bond between soldiers." She never abandoned her post. By 10 p.m., the rescue center had received over $300,000 in donations from all 50 states and 12 foreign countries. The corporate response was equally overwhelming. Purina delivered a truck full of premium puppy food and supplies. PetSmart sent a team to construct a custom recovery area for Luna and her family. A luxury pet bed company overnighted their most expensive orthopedic bed for the hero mom who deserves the best. Tesla CEO Elon Musk tweeted, "Luna's determination to protect her family against impossible odds is the kind of spirit that changes the world. Respect, celebrity." Chef Gordon Ramsay posted an Instagram video of himself preparing gourmet meals for rescue dogs, dedicating it to Luna. Country music star Carrie Underwood shared Luna's story with her 2 million Instagram followers, calling her the strongest mother I've ever heard of. Even former President Obama tweeted, "Luna's story reminds us that love, loyalty, and determination can overcome the most impossible circumstances." That's a lesson we all need right now. The most surreal moment came when Sarah received a call from Steven Spielberg's production company, inquiring about film rights. Mr. Spielberg believes Luna's story represents the kind of uplifting, universal tale of love and perseverance that audiences need, the producer explained. "We'd like to discuss adapting this into a major motion picture." Local businesses in Billings couldn't keep up with the sudden influx of Luna tourists. The hotel where visiting journalists were staying sold out completely. Restaurants were creating Luna specials, with proceeds going to animal rescue. T-shirt vendors appeared on street corners selling Luna Strong merchandise faster than they could print it. But perhaps the most powerful response came from children across America. Elementary schools began organizing Luna drives to collect supplies for local animal shelters. A second-grade class in Vermont raised $847 through a bake sale for Luna's babies. A high school in Tennessee changed their upcoming spring dance theme to Heroes Like Luna and donated all proceeds to animal rescue organizations. The story took an unexpected turn when Dr. Patterson received a call from the American Veterinary Medical Association. Dr. Patterson, we'd like to nominate you and your team for the AVMA Humane Award for your work saving Luna's family, the caller explained. But more importantly, we want to feature Luna's story in our national campaign about the human-animal bond. As Sarah stood in the hospital corridor at midnight, watching Luna sleep peacefully next to her thriving puppies, she was overwhelmed by the response. Her phone showed 247 unread text messages, 89 missed calls, and 1,453 new email notifications. Interview requests were coming from as far away as Japan and Australia. Publishers wanted to buy book rights. Documentary filmmakers were proposing multi-part series. But the most meaningful message came from David Chun, who had landed in Billings and was on his way to the hospital. Sarah, I've been reading all the news coverage during my flight. The whole world knows about Luna now, and they know she's a hero. Uncle Robert would be so proud. He always said Luna was special, but I don't think even he imagined she was capable of something this extraordinary. As Sarah prepared to meet David and witness the reunion between Luna and her human family, she realized that Luna's story had become something much larger than a rescue. It had become a symbol of hope, love, and the incredible power of never giving up exactly what the world needed to hear. The little German shepherd who had refused to abandon her post had captured the heart of an entire nation. What happened next defied every expectation Sarah had about how quickly a story could capture the world's attention. It started when Jake Morrison, still shaken from the morning's rescue, posted a single photo on his personal Facebook page. The image showed Luna in the hospital, her golden eyes fixed lovingly on the warming incubators containing her puppies, with the simple caption, "This mama dog kept 5 babies alive in -15 degrees Fahrenheit weather for 6 weeks. Real love looks like this." Within 2 hours, that post had been shared 50,000 times. By evening, the photo had exploded across every social media platform imaginable. Twitter users were retweeting with hashtags like #LunaTheMiracle and #MotherLove. Instagram influencers were posting tearful videos about Luna's story. TikTok creators were making tribute videos that garnered millions of views within hours. But it was the 9 p.m. post by actress Jennifer Lawrence that sent the story into the stratosphere. "I'm sobbing reading about Luna, the German shepherd who protected her puppies in a Montana blizzard," Lawrence wrote to her 15 million followers. "This is what pure, unconditional love looks like. If this story doesn't restore your faith in the power of maternal devotion, nothing will." #LunaStrong. Sarah's phone hadn't stopped ringing since 3 p.m. First, it was local news stations, then regional outlets, then CNN, Fox News, NBC, and every major network in between. By 8 p.m., camera crews from 4 different national news programs were setting up in the animal hospital's parking lot, transforming the quiet veterinary clinic into the epicenter of a media frenzy. "Sarah, Good Morning America wants to do a live segment tomorrow," announced Lisa Peterson, the hospital's overwhelmed receptionist. And Ellen's producers called 3 times. "Oh, and someone from the White House press office wants to talk to you about Luna meeting the First Lady." Donations began as a trickle at 2 p.m. and became a tsunami by evening. Big Sky Animal Rescue's donation website crashed twice under the volume of traffic. PayPal notifications were coming in so fast that Sarah's phone sounded like a slot machine, hitting jackpot after jackpot. $25 from a teacher in Ohio, $500 from a retiree in Florida, $1,000 from a tech company in Silicon Valley that wanted to honor Luna's incredible strength. But the most touching donations came with personal stories attached. A woman in Texas sent $100 with a note. "Luna reminds me of my own mother, who worked 3 jobs to keep our family together. Some love is so strong it defies explanation." A military veteran in North Carolina donated $250, writing, "Luna's loyalty and sacrifice remind me of the bond between soldiers." She never abandoned her post. By 10 p.m., the rescue center had received over $300,000 in donations from all 50 states and 12 foreign countries. The corporate response was equally overwhelming. Purina delivered a truck full of premium puppy food and supplies. PetSmart sent a team to construct a custom recovery area for Luna and her family. A luxury pet bed company overnighted their most expensive orthopedic bed for the hero mom who deserves the best. Tesla CEO Elon Musk tweeted, "Luna's determination to protect her family against impossible odds is the kind of spirit that changes the world." Respect. Celebrity? Chef Gordon Ramsay posted an Instagram video of himself preparing gourmet meals for rescue dogs, dedicating it to Luna. Country music star Carrie Underwood shared Luna's story with her 2 million Instagram followers, calling her the strongest mother I've ever heard of. Even former President Obama tweeted, "Luna's story reminds us that love, loyalty, and determination can overcome the most impossible circumstances." That's a lesson we all need right now. The most surreal moment came when Sarah received a call from Steven Spielberg's production company, inquiring about film rights. Mr. Spielberg believes Luna's story represents the kind of uplifting, universal tale of love and perseverance that audiences need, the producer explained. "We'd like to discuss adapting this into a major motion picture." Local businesses in Billings couldn't keep up with the sudden influx of Luna tourists. The hotel where visiting journalists were staying sold out completely. Restaurants were creating Luna specials, with proceeds going to animal rescue. T-shirt vendors appeared on street corners selling Luna Strong merchandise faster than they could print it. But perhaps the most powerful response came from children across America. Elementary schools began organizing Luna drives to collect supplies for local animal shelters. A second-grade class in Vermont raised $847 through a bake sale for Luna's babies. A high school in Tennessee changed their upcoming spring dance theme to Heroes Like Luna and donated all proceeds to animal rescue organizations. The story took an unexpected turn when Dr. Patterson received a call from the American Veterinary Medical Association. "Dr. Patterson, we'd like to nominate you and your team for the AVMA Humane Award for your work saving Luna's family," the caller explained. "But more importantly, we want to feature Luna's story in our national campaign about the human-animal bond." As Sarah stood in the hospital corridor at midnight, watching Luna sleep peacefully next to her thriving puppies, she was overwhelmed by the response. Her phone showed 247 unread text messages, 89 missed calls, and 1,453 new email notifications. Interview requests were coming from as far away as Japan and Australia. Publishers wanted to buy book rights. Documentary filmmakers were proposing multi-part series. But the most meaningful message came from David Chun, who had landed in Billings and was on his way to the hospital. "Sarah, I've been reading all the news coverage during my flight. The whole world knows about Luna now, and they know she's a hero. Uncle Robert would be so proud. He always said Luna was special, but I don't think even he imagined she was capable of something this extraordinary." As Sarah prepared to meet David and witness the reunion between Luna and her human family, She realized that Luna's story had become something much larger than a rescue. It had become a symbol of hope, love, and the incredible power of never giving up exactly what the world needed to hear. The little German shepherd who had refused to abandon her post had captured the heart of an entire nation.